This
Jerry would
conference
have
will
shot
now
me.
be recorded.
We are now recording. Thank you, Scott. So we are in meeting 8, which was supposed to happen March 1st. We had a couple weeks where we weren't able to do this, so we're a little behind in our schedule. So we're now in domain 4. There's only one domain after this. This one is Information Systems, Operations, Maintenance, and Service Management. So if you look specifically at what we had this week, it was about IT service delivery and infrastructure. It was about information systems hardware and information systems architecture and software. So first off, is everybody keeping up with the reading? Is there anything that we can do to help with that, to make it happen?
I am behind, and I'm not sure. It's a little daunting coming from I'm behind from the last one and still trying to catch up on this one. So I'm not sure what strategies there are other than just sitting down and reading more.
I'm going to hire somebody to read for me.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Audiobook.
Oh, I actually do have an audiobook of the main book.
You do?
It's kind of helpful. Yep. I
Now
think I have it
tell
through
us.
it's either through my O'Reilly subscription or maybe I have it on Amazon. I'm not sure which.
Wow. Very nice. Well, the good news is that when you look at what's coming, let's see if I can, there we go. That makes it even bigger. So this domain is really and truly more in our wheelhouse than the others have been. The other ones being more pure audit play, which is not where we are. But so it dealt with service delivery and infrastructure. We're talking things like change management, configuration management, incident problem, et cetera. That's your ITIL model. Talking about systems hardware, which also is a strength on this team, and information systems architecture and software. And the next set of reading is about network infrastructure, and Greg, especially thinking of you, disaster recovery planning. And then also auditing IT infrastructure and operations, which we do every day. So I think that you guys are going to find this particular module or domain a lot easier than some in the past. Is that good news?
Yes.
Okay, good. So being a little behind right now isn't as bad as it might feel. So we were talking about whether we did it. So we'll continue on from this. So domain 4, like I mentioned, we've got management and control of operations. So these are the ITIL service management, different areas and practices. We also look at IT operations and exceptions handling, monitoring and security monitoring, end user computing, software program library management, quality assurance, security management, media control, data management, data lifecycle, data quality management. So these are a lot more, I would say, in our wheelhouse than what we've been doing. Software program library management is kind of an interesting one, especially for the thought of assessing against software dev practices. I listened to a podcast with Matt Springfield yesterday that was talking a lot about the things that we really should be assessing against a library that is storing software code. So I thought that was kind of interesting. If anybody's interested in a link to that, let me know.
Yes, please.
Okay. Information systems hardware, computer usage, types of computers, mainframe versus mid-range versus computer hardware architecture, CRISC, CISC, single multiple multi-core CPUs, bus, storage, firmware, networking, virtualization techniques or architectures, hardware maintenance, and hardware monitoring. And we're still on 4. They also cover the computer operating systems, clustering, grid computing, cloud computing in a very narrow way. Data communications, file systems, database management, media management, utility software. software licensing, digital rights management. And that's the last of what we're going to be talking about today. That was a lot, just a lot of areas that within this domain. But first off, at a high level, and this is a good slide to keep as a reference if you're not real familiar with ITIL. So these are the main activities that you think of when you think of ITIL or operations management. And service desk would literally be like a help desk. You call in and they handle both incidents and service requests. Incident being something's down, service request, I need access to, that kind of thing. Incident management, unplanned interruption to an IT service or reduction in quality of IT service. Problem management, a cause of one or more incidents. Change management, we all know change management, and your goal is to minimize the impact of change in your organization. Configuration management, you hear a lot about CIs, so configuration items, which is to track everything that happens to the device once you've got it deployed until it dies. Release management, which of course we look at a lot with software being rolled out, either custom code or patching, etc. Service level management confirms whether IaaS operations are providing adequate service to its customers. Financial management, we all got to worry about budgeting, capital investments. Luckily, that's not a big focus that I've seen in questions yet. It could happen. Capacity management, literally is looking at sufficient capacity in IT systems, processes, resources, making sure that you actually have the capacity to meet what your customers require. Service continuity management, which is, of course, disaster recovery, business continuity. Availability management, which, of course, is just how based on your SLA, are you being available in the times that you're supposed to, 5 nines, 4 nines, whatever availability you're supposed to be providing to your client. Some definitions that are important to know that I've seen questions on, a lot of questions on. An incident is defined as an unplanned interruption to an IT service or reduction in the quality of an IT service. Failure of a configuration item that has not yet affected service is also an incident. For example, a failure of one disk from a mirror set. So incidents can be service outage, service slowdown, software bug. And you'll see a lot of questions that ask you the difference between incident management, known errors, and problem management. And known error is if you've seen this incident before and you do know its root cause, it's considered a known error. Known errors are important to not only know and to track in a system so that you can resolve incidents more quickly, but also so that you can hopefully solve the problem and get rid of it. So a problem is a cause of one or more incidents. Configuration item, they tend to compare this a lot with change management, asking and comparing these two domains or areas. Configuration settings are all known as configuration items, making sure you know that what you've done to that device, what it has, what its operating system is, the levels, etc. Availability, percentage of uptime, data quality management, confidentiality, integrity, completeness of data. I also have seen questions on registers for people that haven't done anything with CPUs in a long time. It's where your arithmetic values are stored. Bus, I've seen a lot of questions on bus for some strange reason, the internal component in your computer that provides means for computers' other components to communicate with each other. So those are just some things that I've seen over and over, so I thought I'd bring those up. And with that, we have discussion questions. So I would take a minute and read this question, and then take a stab at it.
I'd stab at C.
Ding, 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 ding. Good answer. Was there anything specific that made you go specifically to benchmarking?
I looked at the terms of the big umbrella on this one. Of all of them have a component, but the overarching of all of them seem to me to be benchmarking.
Very nice. And another clue within the question itself was level of performance provided by similar information processing facility environments. So it's really looking at comparing with somebody. So yeah, that was very good. Next question.
I guess from an ITIL standpoint, it's almost like C, where you're really focusing on SLAs.
That is correct. Another great answer. And one of the things that I would say on this question that was kind of a clue is it's the benefit of an IT manager monitoring capacity. And so I was thinking based on him, the IT folks look both external service providers and look at providing internally.
And that D, if they're operating at optimal capacity, would be a component of OR SLA.
Exactly. That is correct. Question 3.
I would say average them over the last 12 months so you can come up with what, 96 and a half? I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry?
I was going to say just take the average over the last 12 months, come up with a better.
Oh, okay.
I
don't think that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, B, I think.
Anybody else have any?
It's about an SLA.
And you are correct with it being A. This one was kind of weird for me at first, but then I thought, well, if I have a telephone plan or a data plan and we keep exceeding it so I'm billed more money because I'm just exceeding my plan, you would want to go back and renegotiate.
Now, can we go back because it says it's clear that IT is meeting the required. You know what? I started thinking in terms of the fact that it was 88% or no, it was 98%. So they aren't meeting it.
And and then they averaged only 93% through month end.
And month end is probably only a few days. So the month average is still okay. So you're hitting SLA.
And again, too, it's a financial services office. So, yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other comments on this one? Okay, here's the next one.
Hey, be my
Good answer.
Seems like it would get you the full complete picture start to finish.
It is absolutely the right answer. Because if you just look at what's in the system, that tells you what you've got for authorization, but you're really looking more for what's not authorized.
Right.
Any questions or comments on this one? Okay. Some of the feedback that we've gotten from the class is that we should give more time for you guys to just read the questions and internalize it. So that's why I'm not speaking. And so here's question number 5.
I think it's B because you're planning, so you would need to identify what needs to be added.
Does anybody else have another idea on that one?
I don't like any of these answers.
I know, I didn't either. That's why I included this one. Because, available resources are fully utilized. That really isn't about capacity planning, because you don't want anything to be, I don't know. That one was weird for me. New resources will be added for new applications in a timely manner. That's a part of it. You definitely want to make sure that, you have your resources there. Then available resources are used efficiently and effectively. Then utilization of resources does not drop below 85%. So
I dumped that one because
actually,
they didn't define any SLA there in the question.
You're right. So really the best two answers would be between B and C, and C actually encompasses, but I don't like it, but that is actually the correct answer on this one. They're saying that capacity management is planning and monitoring of computer resources to ensure they're used efficiently and effectively. And I always think more of making sure that you have enough capacity for whatever you're needing to do. But here they're talking about efficient and effective.
Oh, I've heard that come up a number of times.
So that's
efficient
a good
and
one
effective.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you with some of your current clients that comes to mind all the time. So any questions or comments on this question?
I'll narrow it down to A or B. Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to think in the context of, when we used to do database normalization on flat files, and the mainframe is for D. I don't know that necessarily corresponds back to the relational databases.
Okay. So first off, you've gotten the answer correct, but you said A or B. So let's look at D, minimization of response time through faster processing of information. That's not a primary benefit of normalization. Maximizing database integrity by providing information in more than one table. That's really not database integrity, because if you have your information in more than one table, as opposed to having foreign keys and primary keys set up, et cetera, you end up with a big mess in your data. Ability to satisfy more queries, well, yeah, but it is actually minimization of redundancy of information in tables required to satisfy users' needs. So they're really looking at making sure the integrity of the data is in place. One of the questions I saw somewhere was if you have, multiple records, you have a whole bunch of names that are similar, what is the way that you would make sure, based on the way the names are entered, how would you clean up your data? And the answer is in looking at the address field, because you may have entered the person's name a whole bunch of different times, but the address field would be. So it's really looking at making sure that your data is good, sound, and it has integrity to it.
To minimize the quantum of information. That's quite a turn of the phrase.
Yes.
Does anyone think it's not A?
Ding, 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 ding. I hope not. There's got to be some easy ones, right?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions or want further discussion on this one? Okay, Question 8.
Yeah. A again is, it seems to encompass most of what would be looked for from an IS continuity plan, PCP.
Ding, ding, ding. Right answer. Because replacement cost of the application shouldn't drive your business continuity plan. Vendor support available, it's important, but it shouldn't drive it. And then associated threats and vulnerabilities, it's also important to know. But unless you know the value of it to the business, it may be something they don't ever use.
Right.
So you are absolutely correct. And, you know, I have found that in most questions where the answers talk about value to the organization or strategy of the organization, that's usually the right answer.
Well, that's good.
Question 9.
Well, I guess D is in Delta. Just
that's what
system utilities doesn't make much sense. Application program generator. I don't even know what that is, so I don't think that's a thing. System security documentation. I don't know if that's what you'd be most concerned with. Then in client server, presumably you'd be using stored procedures, so access to them is going to be an important part of the security.
That was the initial answer I thought too. But they actually define this with system utilities because that enables you to have a lot of access to change and mess up a lot of different things.
What year is this certification written? It's really dated in a lot of things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and it's their current material. But I don't know. It does seem odd. But it does say that vulnerabilities and utilities and applications, they're not part of the base OS. They may have exploitable weaknesses. And when you think about exploitable weaknesses, how often are we checking all those little systems tools and things to make sure they're patched, running current versions, doing what they're supposed to, making sure access privileges to those tools are really locked down, what they are. So it's, I can kind of see where they're coming from, though I also thought that it should be access to stored procedures.
Actually, if you go back, sorry, just to see the question again, going to the database security. Okay, so they want you to focus on database security versus everything. So maybe. Okay.
That may be a good way to look at that. You're right, because it is database security. Okay, and I apologize for the ugliness of this slide.
I'm going to go with Charlie. I'm not afraid to be wrong again.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a differing opinion?
Possibly A, just if you look at it from a life cycle standpoint.
Anybody else have another idea?
I think it's got to be B or C, because those are preventative controls rather than after the fact controls, but I'm guessing.
I like it.
And let's read this again, would be most effective in ensuring that production source code and object code are synchronized. So their answer on this, and again, I apologize for the horrible looking slide, they're saying date and timestamp reviews. That way you can match to make sure that when the code was rolled and when it was stored, etc.
That has to be actually the most factually incorrect answer.
I
Usually
know.
the questions.
I agree with that answer, and or about what you're saying, that it looks like it would be the least right answer.
I dumped it just immediately. So, wow.
Yeah. So again, I don't even know what the cue on this one is to get you to that particular answer. Because to me, I would think of this as being forensics. I wouldn't be thinking of that to make sure my code and my object code are synchronized. It wouldn't have occurred to me.
C or D?
Yeah, D. C's not bad.
So we all mark out B and A, right? And I will say that it's actually system logs.
Yeah, because D presumes that you will know what the output should be.
Yes, that's exactly correct. That's exactly the way to look at that one. Because system log would look at any activity versus what it's already programmed to look for.
This seems obvious, but I'm kind of spooked now from these crazy questions.
Go for it.
Seems, I mean, it's got to be D, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good answer. Any questions on this one? That one was actually true to form, right?
Mhm.
Question 13.
Well, I say C is out because you don't want to draft anything.
I like C.
Oh, that's
Are we
right.
going to go with that?
To review. Okay, I see. I misread the question.
Do we think C is the right answer? It's worded weird. From an audit perspective, you would really think you wouldn't want to review the draft. You would want to review something that was actually finalized, unless they were brought in to help you look at that particular service provider as being doing due diligence or something.
D.
It's B.
Again, I'm gun shy too.
Yeah. It's got,
And actually,
my clue is
not,
that it says implementation.
yeah, and you know what? I will tell you, the answer is actually B. And one of the questions that I saw in somewhere in all this is they were asking the question about how would you make sure your implementation would go best? And it was looking for an answer that you would get the users involved earlier in the process so that when it was rolled out, it was what they were expecting. They already knew what was coming. They had already given all of their feedback. So when the implementation happened, it would actually be more true to what they were looking for. But again, not one that I would have put in this one either.
That met prior to implementation. So I see UAT as almost a mid or post implementation.
Question 15.
Good question.
This is a similar one that we saw a while ago. I'm sorry?
D?
D, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Reduce the redundancy, minimize the information.
There's no way to select more than one. Okay.
Which do you like the best? Which are the two you're looking at?
B for sure. There's no way middleware is that involved in archiving the audit logs. That's a fact. And then remote procedure calls such as Microsoft Remote Desktop Client, that's hardly never used with middleware. Like I've never seen it used with, yeah, maybe you could put a Citrix gateway, maybe. But even that, so it's got to be B and D, both of them at the same time.
Where you may be correct, they consider B the right answer.
Yeah.
How is it not D?
Anything more on this one?
Oh, I've forgotten about
Did I misread D?
I'm sorry?
Maybe I misread D. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, real
commonly used.
Real aside, I realize he was joking about D, but if it says RPC, that's what they define as middleware.
Yeah, and then they use a bad example. Like RDP is not a good example of RPC. So maybe they just got the last two words wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, these questions aren't all worded real well. That's why you have to be so careful and why it's so easy to miss them. They're tricky.
It's A.
Good job. Yes. Oh, I've got exploited. I think I need to fix that. Okay. 18.
It's like one of those, which is the best of these answers?
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yeah, because you want to make sure there's an audit clause in all contracts, right? And you also it would be marvelous to have SLAs and have them, have key performance indicators that make sure the SLA is met. The contractual warranties of the providers provide the business needs of the organization. And here, well, let me read the next one. At contract termination, support is guaranteed for new outsourcers. And my gosh, if you had a contract without that, you'd need to go back to Contracts for Dummies 101.
Right.
And I see in C is providers support the business needs of the organization.
Yeah,
when I see those words, I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was going to say, it seems like C is the first thing, so that
Yes.
the others
And
follow.
yeah. And whenever, I would say it's a clue that whenever you look at an answer that talks about supporting the business needs, that's usually the answer that it is.
And you mentioned that business needs, strategy, things, words like that.
Yes. One of the things that happens so often in IT organizations is IT starts to think that they own the business. And many IT organizations don't consider their business as being their customer. And so they go off and do things, and if it doesn't support the business doesn't need it. And I've seen that a whole lot just in business operations. And so they're really trying to hone in the fact that IT is to support the business. Contracts should support the business. Everything is about the business, not about the IT.
The
According
old
to what you
tower
told us.
diagram problem.
This is the one you already told us the answer for, Sherry. Root cause identified.
Very good.
Looks like it's C or D. Containment is a function of incident response as opposed to reducing the overall number.
I like the path that you're thinking because problem containment would be a part of problem management. Incident containment would be part of incident management. So the challenge becomes, is it problem management or incident management?
Mm-hmm.
I guess overall incidents would be subsumed in problems. Yeah.
So one of the things that happened on this question was it's actually incident management is the answer. But because I accidentally forwarded up a screen and had to go back a screen, it ends up they changed the order of the remarks or of the answers. So this one is it reduces problem management reduces the overall number of incidents, and incident management is returning. And you know what? Even by this, it looks like it's saying problem management, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That's interesting. That is saying it's problem management. They're similar but different goals. Problem management is to reduce the overall number of incidents. So I would say it's definitely saying problem management.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
That last question, where was it from?
You mean which book?
Yeah.
Or online source? Yeah, this was an online source. This may have been from the CD that comes with the book.
Okay. My observation is that I think the questions in the CISA review book, the book full of questions, were better quality than the ones on the CD that came with the study guide.
I would agree with you. And some of the ones that we have put links out for, like flashcards and those kinds of things, they're definitely written very poorly. So,
Yeah.
Again, it's tricky more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Question 21.
Service level management is, I think, around customer satisfaction, meeting those service levels.
It's got to be
That is
C.
correct. Absolutely correct. And again, it's really supporting your business users, making sure they're happy and can do their jobs.
Happy.
Bravo.
You're correct. Any other questions on digital rights management? Okay.
This is a funny question.
Oh, wait till you see part of the response to it. It's also using interesting words. So let's kind of take them. So the problem reports and logs, is that something that you would look at if you were reviewing problem reports? Probably.
That's what it's reviewing problem reports and logs, except you wouldn't look at problems, reports, and logs.
Yeah, you'd look what they're looking for. Well, I don't know what they're looking for because they do say they're reviewing problem reports and logs. So it's like almost a gimme because they're saying if they're looking at the problem reports and logs, which would they not review? But they would review problem reports and logs.
Logs.
Then the next one, the group assigned to resolve the problem. So did it get assigned to the right people? Did it get assigned at all? Did they follow up? Or they, if you're reviewing this to see, I guess, if this process is working, you would potentially look at who was assigned, the names of individuals who handle certain problems. That would be something that you would see. What about the group that caused the problem?
Yeah, I guess.
No.
That's the only one
No?
that doesn't fit with the others.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
It reminds me of Sesame
Agreed.
Street. One of those things is not like the other.
Yeah.
So listen to this. Congratulations. The auditor is reviewing the company's problem management process and would examine the reports, logs, groups, and individuals responsible for handling the problems. The auditor will not conduct an interrogation of the group that caused the problem. I love the word they used, interrogation of the group that caused the problem. Now, frankly, you would think that you might want to look at that because they may be doing something that could help you figure out what's going wrong, but
Yeah.
it is not like the others. Question 24.
I feel like this is one of those trick questions.
Yes. Because they're all really good. So minimize errors. Yeah, you want that to be an objective. Gather performance data. You want to be able to see that because you're doing performance measurement. Establishing performance baselines. That's the only one I think I could just automatically say no, because if your goal of your performance measurement isn't to set a baseline, it's to actually measure and make sure that you're improving your performance. And that's why D, they would say optimize performance, because you're really wanting it to measure, see how you're doing, and make sure that you can get better. This question kind of reminds me of a CMMI kind of question, capability maturity model.
One, incident management is not specific to computer crimes. So I mean, it could be a component, but that's not necessarily the only cause of an incident.
Good.
I mean, preserving data, that's a whole known errors database, possibly.
Which is usually handled by problem management.
Yeah, and the forensics piece. I'd say C.
I'll go with D.
I'm sorry? D?
D,
And you know what?
yeah,
That's a very... I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was thinking that C was more about problem management, right? Reducing and...
Oh, yeah.
Well, but when you think about it, one project I was on, we were finding that we were changing out tapes all the time, and our tape, we just could, every night, our backups were messing up. And so we had all these incidents about tapes, and we finally started looking at it from a problem management perspective. But at first we had to look, and what we were doing is trying to reduce and remove all that noise, because we knew that there was something else going on because these tapes kept messing up every night. It ended up being that we'd used the tapes for so long, the stickies were actually preventing the tapes from ejecting and being used properly. So it really was about figuring out and reducing, because you're wanting to reduce that noise that your help desk is having to do. And if they're doing things over and over, so it's literally, it's key part, because you have to monitor and maintain, reduce and remove detrimental effects or changes. So our help desk people were really, really busy, but they were doing the same thing over and over and over, which is the definition of insanity when you're not trying to do something different. So
I think, yeah, this is about an auditing perspective, not a forensics perspective. And for me, I went right to the forensic piece as opposed to the IS auditor piece.
That makes total sense. '26.
Unless you were actually running the systems, probably the key fob.
Good answer. That one wasn't a trick question.
Seems like another trick one.
Must be biometric.
Yeah, I'm guessing biometric.
You're exactly correct, because there's no way for radio frequency to be a part of who you are, your fingerprints, your eye print, whatever.
So it should be radio frequency ID, correct? Not radio frequently?
Oh, yes, absolutely, You're correct.
I was sitting there going, what is a radio frequently? I've never heard of that.
That's amazing, the things we block out when we look at things. Question 28. I don't like this one. I don't like this one. Just for the record.
The Delta release.
Yeah, that's
You're right. Delta release was not something that I first thought of. I always think of patch releases, dot releases. But you're right that it is Delta.
I'd say A, based on when this was written.
Yeah.
Really good point, and you are right. That's another challenge that you have in answering those kinds of questions.
Yeah, A, you never get into.
You're right. You're right. You never want to put somebody's name in something. Roles, yes, but still, that's not what they're putting there. So we got through all of our questions. Next week, we are looking at the back half of Domain 4. And for some reason, this has decided not to scroll. There we go. Has anybody else scheduled their exam? One of the things I was reading about is it was saying that for your exam, you should study regularly over a period of time, but not let it go more than 6 months. I thought that was kind of an interesting number there. But they were saying really look at it for a couple months and don't do the last minute cram. Though I think the last minute cram is great to put things in RAM in your head.
RAM cram.
RAM cram. And that is it for today. Any questions or thoughts or things we can do better or differently?
You pulled great sample questions. Thank you.
The hard ones, right? Yeah. It's difficult having an auditor frame of mind because it's very different from what we do. But guys, I appreciate it. I'll give you 4 minutes back to your day. I'm going to stop the recording.